What's up, War Room? Welcome back. I can promise, as you can see from the backdrop, this will not be a 6 minute episode like it was when we were recording last week. We got the full download here. We got a ton of questions from you guys in the Discord. It covers a very, very wide range of topics. We're going to hit as many as we can over the next 20 minutes or so. Hopefully, you caught up with last night's pod. It was a nice 32 minutes riffing on Jets GM candidates, the quarterback situation, head coach candidates. CR, how we doing? Getting your holiday shopping done? Stretch run here.
Yeah, you reach that point of the holiday shopping, like you forget something, and then you're like, cool, now I get to pay $25 for express shipping like a total sucker. So, because I'm at the point where I just can't go in a store anymore. Like
No,
I've
I
reached
can't.
that point of my brain. I went to last weekend, Saturday, I went to see Interstellar in IMAX for the 10th anniversary re-release.
It's a
Phenomenal.
great Saturday.
If you have the chance to do it, I cannot emphasize enough that if you're a fan of the movie, you have to do it. But then after, me and my wife were like, all right, let's grab food. And she wants to run to Target because, of course, we were in Target for 75 seconds. And we literally were like, we need to leave. We need to get to the car. We just cannot do this anymore. So, yeah, it's good that it's almost all. I love Christmas Eve and Christmas, but it's good that the shopping buildup is nearing an end.
I've slowly started the tradition of making the seven fishes on Christmas Eve. I use the word making loosely because half of the fish I just acquire and it's like shrimp
Yes,
cocktail and like
yes.
pre-made sushi, but then I try to make some real stuff. So could follow along with that on Christmas Eve. All right, let's get into some of these. Um, we're laughing at the first one from Mr. Slippery. Is Kirk Cousins to the Jets inevitable? And I'm going to say I watched Kirk Cousins last night, and oh my God, is he cooked? We think Rodgers is not cooked when you compare it to Kirk Cousins, who was playing the whole game in a phone booth and cannot move. Now, maybe he will be better a year after the injury, but color me out on Kirk Cousins' potential bridge QB. I feel like it might be time for him to hang it up, and I feel like Penix is probably going to start next week or sooner rather than later. Any final thoughts on Kirk, who always seemed like he would be a Jet at some point? So I don't want to fully write it off because he does have that be a Jet at some point energy, but what are your thoughts on him as this stage of his career?
He's cooked. I mean, his
Yeah.
body's done. If there's, we had this combo a lot over summer, probably for fantasy purposes. Not only did Kirk tear his Achilles later than Rodgers, although at a younger age, still old for any professional athlete,
Yep.
but he tore the other leg that, in theory, you would think he'd be driving off of, not following through. So we were always fascinated what the recovery and return would be like for that. And it looks like he's got nothing on the
Yeah.
ball. And to be fair, somebody will sign Kirk after this year because I think the Falcons will cut him. They'll just suck it up with the money. They'll make it the Penix era. Maybe they don't. Maybe they make Kirk one of the highest paid backups we've ever seen. But that's towing a very dangerous line. And somebody will see, does a further remove from the torn Achilles, does it get better? And maybe it will, but I don't think it'll ever get back to being where he should be starting for a team that's taking itself very seriously. I think that, I mean, Rodgers has been the better quarterback off the Achilles, despite
Oh,
being
yeah. Yeah.
many years older. So now what you have to remember is Rodgers has always been 50 times more physically gifted than Kirk Cousins ever was. So no, I mean, Kirk Cousins should not. You're going to hear him attached to the Jets. So this is the combo that we're all having right now in the media space with the Jets is if Rodgers keeps playing well and looking healthy and behind a better offensive line right now, and Devontae Adams looks like Devontae Adams, should he be back? And the combo that everybody kind of runs in circles with, and I get it. It's not that easy to answer. It was very easy to answer weeks ago when Rodgers just looked shot. And credit, like he looks healthier and he looks better, but this is a longer combo. But what you have to remember is when you have the combo, it's not just about how the Jets have underperformed expectations this year. It's that the quarterback market in this offseason is going to be one of the worst ones in recent years, counting the
Yep.
draft. You're going to have Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward taken in the first round, really on a curve. They're fine prospects. They are not upper echelon quarterback prospects. They're going to go in the first round, maybe 1 and 2. Like, that's the world we're at for desperation. in terms of the open market, there's not going to be a lot of movement. So many guys signed extensions that whether the team likes them or not, they're tied to the team, like Dak Prescott, right? You have guys that are stuck in no man's land, like Justin Fields, who would be one of the better options for the Jets if they need a quarterback. Like, that's where we're at right now. Will Levis got benched today for Mason Rudolph. So if he's your reclamation project, Sam Howell came in for Geno the other day and looked lost. I mean, there's not a lot of dart throws in this league right now that you could try. Like, everybody's going to play the who's the next Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold narrative. And next year, there probably isn't one. And that's okay. But that's going to play into the Jets' decision with moving on or sticking with Rodgers, because it's more than just about Rodgers. And like I said, there are things behind the scenes that are difficult for us and fans to answer. If Rodgers still has control of the locker room, then like it's going to enhance his chance that he's back. If the locker room's like, man, this guy, like, he didn't live up to the expectation, he's been demanding on us and not holding his end of the bargain, then he won't be, probably. So tying all that up and saying, why on God's name would Kirk Cousins be an option who looks so much worse physically, and I don't think is any kind of bridge answer for next year? He can't move. So many of the Jets' offensive problems this year is having a quarterback that can't move. And in his best games, New England and Jacksonville, it's because he moves well. So that would be the hardest of hard no's for me, Kirk Cousins.
I mean, it bundles into the next two questions we got. One from Pinetine, which is effectively, how do we find the next Darnold in this class? Is it Fields? Is it someone else we're not talking about in class? I mean, like, cast off can do what Baker and Darnold did. And then from N. Kava, if you were the Jets GM, what would be your pitch to Darnold? Everyone keeps saying he wouldn't come here, but he's clearly going to be the guy who gets the monster contract. And the discourse around Darnold seems to be like, and this confuses me. Maybe it doesn't confuse me. I kind of get it. It's a foregone conclusion. He's done with the Vikings, right? They're going to roll with McCarthy. That was the guy they drafted. They have Daniel Jones there to be the backup or their next iteration of Sam Darnold Reclamation Project. Darnold, it makes sense for Darnold to hit the market, right? Like, he is far and away going to be the best option. Now, I wonder, does a guy like, ironically enough, does a guy like Geno Smith hit the market now if things don't end great in Seattle this year? Beyond that, like, yeah, when we were out Friday night with the gang, like, we talked about Fields a decent amount because, like, I'm not advocating for it. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but those are the kind of conversations you're having. Like, are you going to be able, if the Vikings make a real run and they decide to double down with Darnold, could you trade for JJ McCarthy? Do you think that you could make it work with Fields and Tyrod for a year while you wait for a better quarterback class? And you could be really proactive the following year where it's supposed to be a much better class. Or is there somebody else out there that we're not thinking of, but you think, you could make work? I don't think there'll be so many people lined up to pay Darnold. Like, I just don't think he's going to end up back on the Jets. I think Jet fans can talk about it all they want. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to entertain it. I think it's like, I've been there, I've done that, it didn't work out. I don't need to go back and try to do this. I think it's more likely actually Geno would end up back here, but I don't think that's going to happen either. So, I'm racking my brain at like who these backup quarterback options are. It's like, it's not particularly pretty. Like, Fields will be a name that gets thrown around a lot. Like, you got guys like Mitch Trubisky who get passed around. Kenny Pickett, guy like gets passed around. Was he a former first-round pick? Could he do it? Will Levis, who, as you mentioned, the bench for Mason Rudolph. Like, Howell can't move and takes a gazillion sacks. Like, there's not a list of very enticing options. And for the draft, like, once you get past the first two, like, Milroe probably ends up going in the first, but you kind of feel like, do you want to play him as a rookie? And is your play, like, I don't know, probably not.
No,
and then maybe one of those,
undoubtedly no.
Yeah, and then one of those other guys sneaks into like the last fewer picks of the first round, but are probably more like second rounders. And I don't know if the Jets want to go the route of taking a quarterback in that range again. So it's a tough one to answer, right? I think that's why, like, I think someone asked me over the weekend, like, who do you think is most likely to be the Jets quarterback next year? And I said Tyrod, not because it's like I'm advocating for it. And it's like, that's the smartest thing. It's because he's under contract. And I think it's still more likely than not Rodgers isn't back. So that's the safest thing to say. I don't necessarily think they're going to draft a quarterback unless something changes these next few weeks. I I think it could be a version of like Tyrod and Fields for a year while you wait to make your bigger move. But is there another name I'm not thinking of here, racking my brain? I'm sure everyone's listening to this being like, well, of course you're going to keep Rodgers then, but it's more complicated than that. And we need to see how these next few weeks go. And we don't even know if he wants to play next year. He's going to be 42. So what other names are we missing out there? And I'll bridge this into another question we got about how good is the quarterback class in 2026? Like, what are we talking about here?
Right. So 2026 was the question?
Like, yes. Yeah.
Well, these questions have become much more difficult to answer because, number one, I do summer scouting for the quarterbacks the year before. So what I've seen so far, 2026, is just what I've watched on broadcast of college football. There is more talent, raw talent this year if the guys declare. The problem is, in the NIL landscape, we are getting so much further away from that. Drew Aller just went back to school. And there are a lot of people that believe Drew Aller was going to be a top 10 or 15 pick if he declared this year, no matter how much seasoning he needs. Arch Manning will, I think, be calculated with when he leaves school. So you can't sit here and go 2026 is all of these guys. Like, they can make a decision to stay, make a ton of money, and get better at the position rather than being thrown into the NFL and broken down. Like it happens to so many guys. Yeah, for every Jaden Daniels, right, and Bo Nix, who's been uplifted by his environment, there are the Caleb Williams and Drake Mays of the world that are getting the shit knocked out of them right now. And I think they're going to be good players, but they're not in good situations. They're not. So that's why I can't with a straight face tell you this guy are the answer in 2026. But there was more high-end talent, raw talent. With this class, it's weird because you always go into a class and you go, who's going to be the riser? And the riser was Cam Ward. And then Shedeur helped himself, but Shedeur was already kind of in the scene. Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck and Connor Wegman, they went the wrong direction. So I think at the end of the day, the name that, who's the name we're not thinking of, that's really hard because who's going to be looking to move on from their starter right now? We don't really have a lot of clarity on that because not a lot of teams are looking to move on from their starter. Listen, we could do this because it's War Room. We can go down the list. Bills, Josh Allen. No. Dolphins, no one's taking Tua's money. They're stuck with that. Patriots have Drake May. Mahomes for the Chiefs. Bo Nix, rookie for the Broncos. Herbert for the Chargers. Raiders literally don't have anybody you'd want. No answers there. Steelers, Justin Fields. That's one guy that we all think Russ is going to be back with the Steelers. So Fields will be a name that you hear out there for a lot of quarterback needy teams. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. We're not seriously going to have a combo that Jameis is going to be the 1 year guy here, right?
People are going to have that combo. He's been so bad. He's been so bad though.
People are going to have that combo.
And he is bad.
Yeah. So that's a no for me. Stroud, Richardson. We're not going down the Flacco road again.
Richard, we've gotten some questions about Richardson. Would you try him as a 1 year reclamation project?
Yeah, but they're not going to do that. They use the top 5 pick on him, and they want the coach to develop him. And since he came back from the benching, he has taken some steps forward. Jacksonville, I don't think, is going to trade Trevor Lawrence. You don't want anybody on the Titans. You don't want Will Levis as your reclamation project. You don't want Mason Rudolph starting for you. The Eagles have paid Jalen Hurts. The Commanders have Jaden Daniels. The Cowboys can't move on from the contract they just gave Dak. The Giants have the worst quarterback room I've maybe seen in my life, and I've watched Luke Falk play before. The Rams, Stafford is going to be there. He's just going to keep trying to win it with McVay until he rides off into the sunset. Yep. We've had the Sam Howell conversation. Maybe the Seahawks do pull the plug on Geno. Unlikely. Because once again, it's the supply and demand combo. What is their answer if they pull the plug on Geno? There is none. They're too good. They've already won 8 games. So that's a tough one. Kyler not going anywhere. 49ers are going to pay Brock Purdy. Jared Goff not going anywhere. Vikings. The Darnold-McCarthy combo is fascinating. I think it's a lot more difficult and complex than people are making it out to be. But right now, we don't have answers there. Jordan Love, Caleb Williams. Baker Mayfield not going anywhere. Okay, Kirk Cousins will be available. We don't want him. Don't want Derek Carr. No. Do not want to. And people will disagree with me on that. Don't want Derek Carr.
Yep.
Just doesn't get you anywhere. Gets hurt a lot. Not a good idea.
No, we don't. We've made our, yeah. We're not Carr guys here.
I mean, legitimately, then you get to the Panthers and you go, can Andy Dalton start some games? So you just start Tyrod. You already paid him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we went through the entire NFL, and we have really almost no reclamation projects besides, like, can Justin Fields start for you for a year? It's not
pretty out there.
That's not good out there. It's not where you go into it and you go, it's either try it again with Rodgers, or start Tyrod. They know more about Jordan Travis than us. I've been really skeptical on Jordan Travis ever being a real thing. I just want people to not hold on to that hope. If Jordan Travis gets healthy and gets to play and show something, amazing. But it's a total lotto ticket at best.
Yep.
So maybe
he's had a lot to overcome there. Yeah.
Like, say you can't get Fields and you go in and you moved on from Rodgers, which, I mean, the more we have this combo, it's scary.
I just had a horrifying thought of, like, Wentz playing 3 good games here while Mahomes is banged up, and Wentz ends up being that kind of guy. Like, if the Chiefs go like 2-1 with Wentz as their core, I mean, that's kind of the names. It's not even the starters. It's like, can you convince the Lions to trade you like Herndon Hooker? Can you convince, like, do you want the Bucks to like throw you Kyle Trask, who stinks?
Yeah, it's like bad names.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people listening. I know a lot of people on like radio and TV are kind of looking around like, are the Jets just going to have to run this back with Rodgers? And there's a potential they do, but I also think it is fully up to the new regime as they cultivate the kind of environment they want. It's easy to do Vrabel because that's what we have right now. So we'll do Vrabel. If Vrabel comes here and goes, like,
talks Ryan Tannehill out of retirement for 1 year.
Vrabel's an alpha male. If Vrabel goes, no, I'll run it back with Aaron. Like, this is my fucking room. Nobody's going to be more important than me, so don't worry about that. You trust him, right? Like, don't you trust him? If he says that?
If you hire him, that's what you're hiring him for. Like, you're the guy in the room. Like, it's your show.
And then after 1 year, they're going to have a different plan, and the Vrabel era goes on with somebody else, and that's that. If Vrabel comes and says, we don't want any Aaron's bullshit here, just let me start Tyrod or Fields for a year, and we're going to get this right. But I need to get the team right, where when we take a rookie in 2026, he's walking into an environment that's already built for him.
Yep.
Not the thing the Jets done forever where, oh, the new quarterback's here, like everyone's going to be better now, when everything sucks around them every time. So that's why you go roll out the red carpet for a Vrabel, or even if you don't, Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn, whoever it is, they need to be the person to make that decision, because it's gonna be matched up with the plan that the GM has right there. And you have to trust that plan. That's why you hire these people and give them that power.
All right, let's